Welcome to another night of shadows and stories with Uncle Grim. Tonight's tale, a dark journey into the heart of guilt, legacy, and the haunted halls of Wayne Manor. Told through the eyes of the man beneath the mask, Bruce Wayne. A tale of cracked mirrors, living nightmares, and the silent war between the bat and the boy who wears it. But before you settle in and let sleep take hold, take a moment to tap that like button. Subscribe for tomorrow's tale, and tell us in the comments, where in the world are you listening from? Now, dim the lights, get comfortable, and descend with us into the manor. There are few things in Gotham that stir when the city sleeps. One of them lives beneath the floorboards of Wayne Manor. It waits, not for justice nor vengeance, but for Bruce Wayne's silence. And that silence arrived one cold October night when the Batcave sat dormant for the first time in years. Alfred was long gone, buried in a corner of Gotham Cemetery, beneath a headstone Bruce never visited, but funded with military precision. The cave was dustier now. Empty batsuits lined the walls like exiled memories. The computers flickered aimlessly, awaiting keystrokes that would never come. Bruce hadn't worn the cowl in months, not since the Gotham Canal incident, not since Jason, not since the screaming. He heard it again that night. It wasn't the wind. Wayne Manor had windows too thick for that. Nor was it rodents or raccoons. This sound was deeper, wet, and layered in something like static. It came from under the study, just beneath the old grandfather clock that led to the Batcave. Only now, it didn't open. It hadn't opened in days. And Bruce hadn't tried. He sat there in his father's chair, a glass of untouched scotch resting near a forgotten photo of his parents. He stared into the fire, jaw clenched, when the voice crept again from the cracks in the wood. "Bruce," it whispered, "he never forgave you." Batman was a detective, not just a brawler, not just a myth, but a mind sharpened like a surgical blade. Yet tonight, his mind was fogged by something unfamiliar, fear. Not of death. He'd danced with that too. Was this the price of survival? Had every villain left behind some mark inside his psyche, carving out a space in his brain like rats in drywall? He descended into the cave on the sixth night, torch in hand, but the door beneath the clock did not budge. The gears jammed, the hands frozen at 10:48, his parents' time of death. Desperate, Bruce turned to the manor's oldest blueprints, dating back to the 1800s. That's when he noticed something peculiar. Beneath the foundation of the study, there was a sealed chamber. No access point, no record of its use, just a hollow void marked in faded ink. Sublayer 3, archive unknown. He ordered construction gear, working alone. The house echoed with hammering, drilling, and the occasional roar of a power saw slicing through oak floors. On the fourth night of excavation, He broke through concrete and discovered a hidden stairwell. Dust choked the air. Rats fled like shadows. At the bottom lay a door made of rusted iron, carved with a Wayne family crest Bruce had never seen before. It looked wrong, twisted. The wings of the bat were downward, inverted. A symbol, not of justice, but of penance. He opened it. Inside, the walls were covered in old portraits. Wayne ancestors staring down with hollow eyes, their expressions warped by age or something worse. But in the center of the room stood a single chair, and on it, a skeleton dressed in a butler's uniform. The jaw had been broken, the wrists shackled. It wore a tarnished name tag, Alfred Pennyworth, 1892. Bruce's heartbeat thundered in his chest. His Alfred had never spoken of ancestors, but this wasn't history. This was something deeper, something repeating. Bruce locked the chamber, sealing it with molten steel. He told himself it was superstition, a prank, an elaborate delusion triggered by isolation. But the whispers followed him back into the study, now louder, angrier. "You found what we buried," they said. The next day, he awoke with dried blood under his fingernails. Scratches lined the walls of his bedroom, long, deliberate gouges. He checked the security feeds. Static. He wasn't sleeping, not anymore, not well. He would dream of the bat signal, blinking on and off in a red sky, each flash bringing him closer to a forgotten alley. The pearls would fall. His mother would scream. But this time, his father would turn to him, face melting into the Joker's, then Jason's, then his own, and whisper, "You're not the cure, Bruce. You're the disease." The mansion felt colder. Doors creaked open by themselves. Bats began nesting inside the walls. Bruce returned to the chamber on the 10th night. This time not to investigate, but to stay. He brought a chair, sat before the skeletal butler, and waited. The voice came clearer now, not in whispers, but in low, resonant tones. It told him of the night room, a place between worlds where all Waynes eventually go. A purgatory for broken suns, a prison of echoes, a vault of guilt. The room began to change. Walls stretched. Shadows moved. Bruce saw visions of past mistakes playing like projections. The alley, the Joker, Jason's body, the burning of Wayne Tower, the bat crashing into the bay. But it was the final vision that broke him. It was himself, old and gray, sitting alone in this same chair, surrounded by bones, whispering to no one. Trapped forever in the house he built. Accepted, the voice urged. You can't save a city built on a grave. For the first time in years, Bruce Wayne wept. The bat signal hasn't lit the Gotham skies in weeks. The GCPD says Batman is off-grid. A few criminals whisper he's dead. Others say he became one of the things he hunted. But Commissioner Gordon knows better. He keeps the light on, just in case. Because some nights, just before dawn, a faint silhouette appears on the manor's rooftop. Watching, waiting, listening. But he never comes. And deep beneath the floorboards of Wayne Manor, in the room without time, Bruce Wayne sits in silence, haunted not by Gotham, but by himself. The rain returned to Gotham on the 12th night. Cold and metallic, it slid down the windows of Wayne Manor like slow tears. Bruce sat in the study again, this time unmoving, the fire unlit. The scotch was gone. The photo of his parents had fallen to the floor. The glass cracked diagonally across his mother's smile. Somewhere in the darkened halls, a grandfather clock ticked. He hadn't wound it in weeks, yet it ticked. He told himself he would only go back one more time, just once, to confirm it wasn't real, that the skeletal remains weren't talking to him, that the strange inverted crest on the door wasn't identical to the one he'd seen carved to the wall. It was heavier, more awake. He could smell something new, iron, dust, and something faintly sweet, like dried blood and perfume. He stepped inside. The portraits were still there, eyes following him. The skeleton hadn't moved, but behind the chair, Bruce noticed something had changed. The wall, once solid stone, now bore a thin red line, like a vein carved into concrete. He traced it with gloved fingers. It was warm. When he pressed it, the stone shuddered and split open with a low groan. Behind it was another hallway, long, narrow, breathing. Its floor was tiled in alternating black and white marble, and at the end of it stood a door he recognized immediately. It was his childhood bedroom, exactly as he'd left it the night his parents died. The posters, the books on the shelf, the telescope by the window, all restored with impossible accuracy. Even the dent on the bedpost from the time he'd tripped chasing shadows. He stepped inside, the door clicking shut behind him. The silence in that room was the loudest he'd ever heard. He walked to the nightstand. There, resting beneath a dustless lamp, was a journal. His journal. A page was already open. It read, "I saw him again tonight, the man in the alley, but this time, he wasn't holding a gun. He was holding my hand." He didn't remember writing that. The lamp flickered. The room tilted. Books fell from the shelves, pages tearing in slow motion. The posters on the wall shifted, changing images. No longer comic heroes, but mugshots, criminals, murderers, faces he'd broken, lives he'd scarred. In the mirror across from the bed, his reflection no longer wore his black suit. It wore the cowl, but the eyes beneath it were hollow, glowing faintly red. Then the voice came again, not a whisper this time, but a memory. "You know what it feels like to fail a city, Bruce." It was Alfred's voice. "It feels like nothing, because you never truly believed you could save it." The bed groaned. He turned. Jason sat there now, alive but rotting, one eye missing. "I begged you to come. You didn't." Selena appeared in the corner, arms crossed, expression unreadable. You gave up on and raised its hand, fingers long and jointless, and pointed. Behind Bruce, the wall opened to another hallway. Without thinking, without questioning, he walked through it. His breath fogged. The air was colder now, ancient. At the end of the path, another room. The night room. He knew it by instinct. A chamber beyond time, built in a place beneath the earth where screams never reached the surface. It was circular, the walls made of bone and brick, torches lining its edge. In the center stood a massive throne, carved from stone and vertebrae. Upon it sat himself, or rather, a version of him, older, gaunter, the cowl fused to the skin, fingers stained with blood, the eyes not human, glowing like twin embers. The throne Bruce looked up as the living one approached, and when he spoke, his voice was layered with hundreds of others, Gotham's voices, past, present, and future. "Welcome home," it said. "You've always belonged here." Bruce fell to his knees. The weight of the night room crushed his spine, curled his hands. His bones ached with the weight of years unlived. He saw it all at once, every timeline, every future where he became this thing. Not a hero, not even a man, but a symbol devoured by the very shadows it commanded. "You built a legacy on punishment," the voice said. "But punishment without healing is a prison. And Gotham was never your mission, Bruce. It was your cell." The torches flared, screams echoed from the walls. Faces emerged in the fire. Dick, Barbara, Jason, Tim, even Damien. All broken, all gone. Victims of his mission, martyrs of the bat. "No more," he whispered. "I won't become you." "You already have," the throne Bruce said. Then it rose, and the night room shook. The two Bruce Waynes stood face to face. The living one reached for his utility belt, but it was gone. He had no gadgets, no armor, only fear. Rain had always been a constant in Gotham. Sometimes it whispered like regret. Other nights it pounded like judgment. But tonight it was gentle, almost cleansing. Bruce stood beneath it on the manor balcony, eyes fixed on the horizon, where the city shimmered like wet glass under faint moonlight. The bat signal flickered distantly, casting its pale arc through low clouds, but he didn't move toward it. not yet. For the first time in what felt like years, he breathed deeply. Not like Batman, not like the legend, but like a man finally waking from a fever dream. He had not returned to the night room since that day. He hadn't heard voices from beneath the floorboards. The whispers were gone, as if the house itself had exhaled with him. And yet, something in the silence was heavier than before. Not threatening, just waiting, watching, like a chapter unfinished, or a door left slightly ajar. Bruce had spent a week walking the halls of the manor, relearning the rhythm of it, memorizing the creaks and shifts in the walls. Alfred used to say a house was like a body. It remembered pain, and Wayne Manor had known more pain than most. In the cave, he avoided the main terminal. Let the servers rest. The files on known criminals, the news feeds, the urgent red markers blinking for his attention, all ignored. Instead, he spent his hours in the old training chamber, moving slower, deliberate. He read books again, repaired the suit himself, sharpened blades not for battle, but for discipline, for control. But above all, he slept deeply. No dreams, no nightmares, just silence. Then on the 7th day, a letter arrived. No postage, no courier. It had simply appeared on the study desk one morning, sealed in black wax, bearing the inverted bat crest from the chamber wall. Bruce stared at it for nearly an hour before breaking the seal. Inside was a single sheet of parchment, the handwriting crisp and unfamiliar. You passed through the first door, but not the last. No signature, no indication of who sent it, no fingerprints. Bruce ran every test he could. No fibers matched. The ink contained fragments of iron, blood perhaps, but even the blood didn't trace to anything known in his files. That night, the whisper returned, not from beneath the floorboards, but from the mirror. He had just finished brushing his teeth. When he looked up, the reflection didn't match. Not entirely. It looked like him. Same jawline, same graying hair, but the eyes were different. Pale and blinking, just half a second out of sync. You buried the cowl, it said softly, but you didn't bury the guilt. Bruce blinked. The reflection didn't. Instead, it stepped back in the mirror and revealed a room behind it. Not the bathroom, not any room in the manor, a cathedral. Stone pillars, candles burning sideways in wind that couldn't exist. A coffin sat in the center, and on it, carved in stone, here lies the last mask. Bruce slammed the mirror with his fist, glass shattering onto the sink and floor. The image vanished. His breath fogged. The air felt colder again. He didn't sleep that night. He sat by the fire until dawn, the heat biting his face as if daring him to move. When he finally stood, he didn't walk to the cave. He walked to the portrait hall, where the ancestors lined the walls, staring in painted silence. His father's portrait hung nearest the door. Bruce stared at it, lips pressed tight. "Did you know?" he asked aloud. "Was this always part of us?" The portrait offered nothing, but a faint breeze stirred the curtains behind him, and he turned, just in time to see the wall at the end of the hall slowly open. There had never been a door there, not in the blueprints, not in the 70 years of memory the house held, but it opened nonetheless, revealing stone steps descending into dark. No torch this time, no cape. Bruce simply followed. The air smelled of smoke and iron. The further he walked, the warmer it became. And when he reached the end of the staircase, he found himself not in another chamber, but in what looked like an ancient church buried beneath the foundation. Wooden pews, decayed. Bruce stepped forward. The altar caught fire. The candles exploded in bursts of crimson flame, lighting the cathedral in a hellish glow. The stained glass window above melted, dripping colorless light. The doppelganger lunged, but Bruce didn't move. He let it grab him, let the arms wrap around his chest. And then, quietly, he whispered, "I forgive you." The figure froze, its face warped, shifting between every version of Bruce Wayne, young, old, broken, triumphant. Then it cracked down the middle and crumbled into ash. The flames vanished. The altar fell silent, and Bruce stood alone. When he returned to the surface, morning had broken. The manor felt lighter, brighter. The shadows no longer moved when he passed. He walked to the cave, powered on the terminal, and sat. The city was still broken, still afraid. But this time he wasn't wearing the mask of vengeance. He was wearing the face of a man who had been to the bottom of his soul and come back, not whole, but awake. And far above Gotham, the bat signal burned steady once more. Wayne Manor had always been large enough to lose things: portraits, time, people. But lately, Bruce had begun to wonder if it had started losing parts of itself. There were doors now he didn't remember building. Entire corridors felt slightly off, like replicas made from faded memory. The walls hummed at night, like they were remembering something he'd forgotten. Even with the Batcave powered back on, and the city once again part of his rhythm, the manor's silence pressed against his ears harder than before. He was back in the cowl, not every night, but often. He moved differently now, slower, not out of age or injury, but because he understood the cost. Every blow he landed echoed somewhere deeper. Every broken rib felt more like a debt than a victory. Gotham hadn't changed. Its streets still hissed with corruption and blood, but Bruce had. The cathedral beneath the manor had marked him, not physically, but spiritually. He'd faced a version of himself that lived only in endings. And he hadn't destroyed it. He'd forgiven it. That was harder. Then the cases began. Not the usual muggings or drug rings, but something stranger, symbolic. A GCPD report described a man in a homemade. Bruce sat in the cave, eyes heavy, cowl on the table beside him. He stared at the evidence board, but it felt wrong, like trying to draw constellations from clouds. These weren't clues. They were messages. For him. From what, he still didn't know. But it felt familiar. That night, he returned to the chamber beneath the manor. The room of the old skeleton and the forgotten bloodline. The iron door opened easier now. The room greeted him not with menace, but stillness. On the ground, where the skeleton had once rested, something new had grown. A patch of wildflowers. Blue. Fragile. He knelt, touched them. Real. The air in the chamber changed, like the shift in atmosphere before thunder. And then, a voice. Not from the floorboards, not from mirrors, but from inside. Would you have chosen the mask if they'd lived? It was his mother's voice, but not a recording. Not a trick. Would you have built this kingdom of pain if you were just Bruce Wayne, son of two quiet doctors? He stood. I don't know. The walls cracked slightly. Behind them, something stirred. Another voice spoke, his father's this time. We never asked you to avenge us. We asked you to live. The lights in the chamber dimmed. The floor below him shifted. He stumbled back. The wildflowers had spread, crawling across the stone like veins. The entire chamber trembled. Then it began to descend. The chamber was an elevator. Bruce gripped the wall. Dust fell like snow. The room plunged deeper into the earth, deeper than the Batcave, deeper than any foundation the manor could support. Time bent. He felt younger, older, trapped between every version of himself. Then it stopped, and the door opened into memory. Not illusion, not dream. Memory. He was in Crime Alley, but it wasn't raining. It was snowing. The lights were warm. His parents walked ahead of him, arms linked, smiling. The theater marquee glowed. Zorro, the gay blade. He remembered that night in shards, pearls, gunshot, screams, blood. But this wasn't that night. Not exactly. A man approached them from the shadows, tall, hundreds of mirrors, each showing a version of him. Some wore suits, some wore armor, some wore rags. One sat in Arkham. One swung from a gargoyle. One bled out in the alley where it all began. They all stared at him. "You don't defeat the bat," said the reflections. "You become the man beneath it." Then, all at once, the mirrors shattered. The pieces flew into him. When Bruce woke, he was in his bed. Not the cave, not the chamber. His hands were clean. The room was warm. The fire beside him still crackled. And on the nightstand, a single object. A mask. Not the cowl. A child's masquerade mask. Paper. Painted. Folded once at the edge, where blood had dried. He stared at it for hours. Didn't move. Until dawn, when the bat signal lit the sky again. But he didn't go. Instead, Bruce walked the halls of Wayne Manor with new eyes. He stopped by every door, every portrait. He opened the grandfather clock passage, but not to descend. He just listened. There were no voices, not tonight. Only the echo of his own footsteps, and a quiet understanding that something beneath the house would always wait. Not to haunt him, but to remind him. He was never just a man. He was the silence between screams, the stillness before the storm. And whether he wore the mask or not, Gotham would always dream of him. Time had started behaving strangely inside Wayne Manor. The clocks ran, but none matched. The one in the kitchen was always 15 minutes behind. The study's grandfather clock, forever stuck at 10:48, now ticked anyway, audibly, despite no gears turning inside. Even the Batcave systems recorded anomalies. Mission logs from days Bruce didn't remember, footage of him walking corridors he hadn't visited. On one monitor, he appeared in the dining hall at 3:13 a.m., standing perfectly still in front of Alfred's empty seat, mouth moving like a man in silent prayer. He hadn't been in the dining hall in over a month. Bruce reviewed the footage over and over, his jaw tightening. The version of him on screen never blinked, never moved, save for the lips. And then, in the final second of the recording, this version turned to face the camera, directly, and smiled. Not his smile. A stranger's smile on his own face. Slow. Wrong. He shut off the monitors. That night, he made a decision. No more retreating. No more analyzing. No more haunting hallways and whispering reflections. If the house held something deeper, something older, it had to be confronted, not endured. He walked the halls until dawn, pressing every panel, checking every corridor, feeling the walls like a blind man seeking memory in stone. By stone, 8 years old, in the exact posture he remembered from a photo he'd destroyed long ago. In the painting, he wasn't smiling. He wasn't frowning either. He just looked like a child watching something burn behind the camera. On the back of the canvas, written in red charcoal, the first witness. Bruce stepped back, his breath visible in the air again. Then, behind him, the door closed, not slammed, just clicked shut with finality. The room grew colder. The painting began to flake, and from the walls, the voices returned, not whispering this time, but clear. You tried to be the bat, so the boy wouldn't have to be. Bruce turned, fists clenched. You thought pain could be transformed into purpose, the voice said. You were wrong. The floor beneath him softened, wood becoming ash. The wallpaper peeled away in strips, revealing black stone beneath it. The room had not been part of the manor. It had been beneath it. The chamber returned, but it had grown. Now it was a labyrinth, walls of portraits, doors that breathed, lights that blinked like eyes. He wandered through it for what felt like hours, days. Time unraveled. At one point, he passed a mirror that showed him holding Damien's lifeless body, even though that never happened. Not yet. Another mirror showed Alfred alive, standing beside him, whispering something Bruce couldn't hear. His ears rang with static. Eventually, he reached a center, a cathedral of silence. Rows of empty chairs faced a stage. On it, a man stood behind a lectern. Bruce walked closer. It was Thomas Wayne, or something wearing him. He wore the doctor's coat. Blood soaked the cuffs. His face looked half carved from marble. His eyes were hollow, filled with flickering images of Gotham. "Welcome to the trial," the figure said. Bruce said nothing. "You are not here to be judged by the city," the figure continued. "You are here to be judged by yourself." One by one, the empty chairs filled. Each figure took a seat. Every one of them was Bruce. Different versions, ages, broken in different ways. Some wore the suit. "No," the boy said, eyes bright with hurt. "You erased me. You made me into armor. You made me forget how to feel anything but rage." The boy pulled something from his coat. A photo. Bruce recognized it. It was the last photo ever taken of the three of them, his parents standing behind him, arms around his shoulders. The only photo Bruce ever destroyed. It should not have existed. The boy held it up, then set it on fire. The flame spread across the cathedral. Portraits screamed. Mirrors cracked. The floor buckled and twisted. But Bruce stood still. He didn't run. He didn't hide. He walked to the boy and knelt. "I'm sorry," he said. Not to the world, not to the ghosts, to the child. "I should have stayed with you. I should have let you grieve. I turned you into a mission." The boy's eyes welled up. Bruce opened his arms, and the boy ran into them. They collapsed together as the fire consumed the stage. But the flame didn't burn. It cleansed. The cathedral faded, and Bruce awoke in his bed again. No fire, no smoke. Just light outside. Morning. And on his nightstand, something new. The photo. Restored. No burns. No creases. Just a family frozen in time. He picked it up and smiled faintly. And for the first time in decades, he didn't feel alone. The city was quiet that night. Not safe, never safe, but quiet. Bruce stood atop Wayne Tower, the wind tugging lightly at the cape he no longer wore. He hadn't donned the batsuit in 2 weeks, and yet crime didn't rise. Not significantly. Gordon hadn't said a word. The bat signal hadn't lit the clouds. It was as if Gotham itself was pausing, uncertain what came next. In his earpiece, silence. He didn't need it anymore. Not tonight. Below, the lights of Gotham blinked like stars drowning in fog. He could trace every alley from here, every path he used to leap, every gargoyle he'd perched upon for hours, brooding. Once, this vantage point had made him feel like a god. Now it made him feel small, human, and that was all right. He turned away from the edge and descended through the access hatch back into the private elevator. The descent felt like hours. As he passed floor after floor of the tower, each lit briefly by the passing fluorescent bulbs, he saw reflections in the doors. Past selves, flickering, no longer taunting, just watching. By the time he reached, then he heard it. Not a whisper, not a hallucination, but a knock from behind the grandfather clock. 3 slow, deliberate raps. He rose calmly. His heart did not race. He crossed the room and opened the clock. The passage was open again. The bat cave glowed below. But that wasn't where the sound had come from. No, it had come from the wall, to the right of the staircase, a place he'd never thought to look. He placed his palm against it, and it opened. Behind the panel was a room no blueprint had recorded. Circular, stone, empty, save for a single pedestal, and on it, a mask. Not his, not a bat. A child's masquerade mask, made of porcelain, white with gold trim, unworn, untouched, and beside it, folded carefully, a letter. He opened it with steady hands. The boy is safe now. You may leave the hallway. That was all. He stared at the mask for a long time, then sat on the floor, cross-legged, like he used to when listening to Alfred read to him. The chamber was quiet, but not hollow, not foreboding. It felt like peace, not the kind you find, the kind you earn. After some time, he stood again. He left the mask behind. He sealed the room. And for the first time in years, he left the manor through the front door. Not the cave, not the shadows, not the secret roots, just the front door, coat on, scarf around his neck, keys in hand. He walked down the drive. The gates opened without a sound. The city was cold, but welcoming. He had no destination, but he had direction. And far above, high in the tower where the bat signal used to shine, a new light blinked into the sky. Soft, white, circular. Not a warning, not a call, just a sign that someone was still watching, but no longer hiding. Wayne Manor stood silent behind him, tucked in mist. Not haunted, not cursed. Just a house, and the man who once lived in its walls like a ghost finally walked free.